Good morning, Silver Creek. It's Good Friday. I have a message for you today for Good Friday. A message that I hope you'll enjoy. A message I hope you'll take to heart. Have you ever had that feeling that something isn't right? It's just come over you, and you can tell that what's going on around you, it just doesn't have that feel to it that it's good, or that it's holy, or that it's right. Maybe you've been asleep in bed, sound asleep, and all of a sudden you have that feeling. You wake up with that something isn't right, only to open your eyes and see your son or your daughter staring at you, or maybe your dog, and they're just looking you right in the eye, and you have that moment of terror, and then that moment of, is everything okay? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Maybe you've had that opportunity where you say to yourself, something here isn't right. You're walking through a parking lot, and something doesn't make sense, or you're reading an invoice and you're thinking to yourself, this isn't me. I didn't do this. This isn't right. Or maybe it's a credit card statement, or maybe it's a magic trick, or 12 men on a football field. You just have that sense about you that what's before you isn't quite right. I remember the first time I read the crucifixion story. Do you? I remember thinking to myself at that time, something isn't right here. This shouldn't be happening. I don't understand what's taking place. I can remember the story. I can remember those early days of reading it and thinking to myself, what is really taking place? I don't understand. Something here just isn't right. And maybe there's been times in your life when you've read it and something isn't right. My quick story, my short devotional today is from Matthew chapter 27. And I encourage you today to read Matthew chapter 27 and get a hold of the story of Jesus on this crucifixion day. If I could just paraphrase for you, the Sanhedrin, the elders, the scribes, they don't like Jesus's double talk. They don't like the things that he's saying. They don't like the way he's going about his business. They have heard his words, and they don't like the fact particularly that he states he is one with the Father, one with God, and if you have seen him, you have seen the Father. But to them, it's blasphemy. He says that he is one with the Father, and they are the ones who have heard directly from God. They have Moses, they have Abraham. They believe they have heard from God themselves, and this is not the word of God that they know. They can't take it anymore. This false prophet is getting to them, and he is saying so much that they believe it to be blasphemy. And they can't hold on to his language any longer. They feel like they have to shut him up. They feel like they have to get to him. They feel like they have to silence Jesus. So they make a deal with Judas. We talked about that last week. And Judas leads them to the garden. And in the garden, in great criminal cowardice, he points out Jesus, and they arrest Jesus. They accuse him, and they bring him to Pilate to be examined. Once examined, Pilate finds no fault in him. But the crowd cries out for Pilate to continue, to look harder, to look deeper. For he is trying to replace Caesar, they say. Claudia, Pilate's wife, she confirms his innocence and says, don't do this. You know, in the whole story of the passion of the Christ, no one pleads for him but a woman, the wife of a heathen governor, the deputy of the emperor of the world. The only person to plead for Jesus. The question is raised, well, then what shall I do with Jesus? The crowd yells out, well, crucify him. And the disciples are scattered. And the chief priests and the elders rise up against him. Truly, Jesus was despised and rejected by men. His mother and the other Marys weep in stunned silence. Pilate took water and he washed his hands before them and declared, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. But he wasn't. None of us really are. Where are all those who were healed? Where are the lame, the blind, the leper, those forgiven of their sins? Where is the forgiven sinner, the adulterer, the tax collector? Why aren't they shouting from the rooftops, save this man? He is a healer, a prophet come from God. Release Jesus. But instigated by the Sanhedrins working insidiously among them, the multitude, now very numerous, respond with a really fiendish cry. Crucify him. Crucify him. Pilate says, it's a custom of yours on this Passover season to release someone. Shall I release Jesus? And they say, no. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. And again Pilate asked, what about Jesus? And that insidious cry from the crowd, stirred by the elders, says, crucify him. Crucify him. Crucify him. So they lead him to the praetorium to be scourged before his crucifixion. Calling their friends, they mock him. They put a robe on his back. They twist a crown of thorns and put it on his head and a reed in his hand. They put purple around him in a robe-like fashion, and they bow to him and they call him the King of the Jews. Hail, King of the Jews, they say. They spit on him. They punch him. They strip him of that robe. They put his own clothes on him and they lead him away to be crucified. Isaiah 53 reads like this. Who has believed our report? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. For he has no form or comeliness, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteem him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. Paul told the Romans, God laid on him the iniquity of us all. Walk, they say. Go. Carry your cross. But he could not. The soldiers implore Simon of Cyrene to carry the cross for him up the Via Dolorosa to Golgotha. And when he arrived there, they crucified him. They divided his garments, casting lots. They sat and watched him. Bored watching him with the two criminals dying on those crosses, they made a sign and placed it above his head, and it read, Jesus, the King of the Jews. The chief priests with the elders and scribes, they wagged their finger at him. They mocked him. If you are God, come down off that cross. You save others. Can you not save yourself? They said. So on about the 9th hour, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Jesus, the healer of the multitude, the waymaker, the chain breaker, the multiplier of resources, yielded his spirit and died. At the hands of sinners, he came to save. He died. Bloody, beaten, broken, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In his humanity, he wanted to be saved from this hour. In his divinity, he came for this hour. Now listen to this hymn. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. I have not been rebellious. I have not drawn back. I have offered my back to those who beat me. I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as sheep before her shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. I lay down my life only to take it up again. I am the good shepherd. No one takes my life from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. Do you think that I could not call my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all men to myself. How about this hymn from Isaac Watts? When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. Forbid me, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ, my God. All the vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice them to his blood. See, from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose as rich a crown? Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small, love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. Christ died today for you and for me. His love is so amazing, not just because he died to save us, but because the God who requires a sacrifice also provided the sacrifice in your place and in mine.